Hi there, listener, and welcome to a new series of podcasts that we're going to be doing about equipment for the 2023-24 season. I am delighted to be joined by my guest today, an expert on all things equipment, Al Morgan. Regular listeners will know him well. He writes for Ski Kit Info, Fall Line, The Telegraph. He's our equipment expert there. Hi, Al, how are you?
Iain, I am great, thank you. And this ski season's coming, snow's falling. Oh, so exciting.
Yeah, it is. I mean, the snow is good. It's pretty cold today as well. So I know lots of people's thoughts are turning to the winter. A few resorts have already opened up. The plan is with these podcasts, I think we're in a series of about 5 of them. We're going to start off looking at skis, and then in later episodes, we're going to look at ski boots, jackets, helmets, goggles, gloves, socks, all those sort of things that are important to people. But I wanted to start off by a big shout out and thanks to Ellis Brigham, who essentially have made the recording of this possible. Ellis Brigham are the winter sports specialists. They have 16 shops around the UK where you can find all the kit you need for this season, or you can just go to their website at ellis-brigham.com and you can buy online now. So, Al, this episode, we're going to look at skis. Now, I don't want to have too much jargon, in these episodes. I don't want to put listeners off. The idea is it's meant to be useful for people. But in terms of skis, they do come in different categories. So let's tackle a couple of things now. You can have piste skis and touring skis. They're kind of obvious what they're for. But what about Big Mountain, Freeride? How are they different? And when would you be thinking about buying those categories?
Oh, the old jargon conundrum. Isn't it mad? All these brands have these different terms and it just gets so confusing. I mean, just stepping back to Piste. Piste is super interesting. Piste has traditionally been kind of race skis or detuned race skis, and they've been quite... You've really got, generally to get the most out of them, especially upper level, good technique. Whereas they are bringing fun back to piste skiing. It is fantastic. We've seen this with things like the Lying Blade. It's been out for a while now, the Black Crow's Mirus Core. But this year, Salomon just seems to have found their flow again. And the Addikt Pro that they've come up with is just phenomenal. Now, we'll talk about that in a bit, but it's just brilliant to see this element coming back to piste skiing. But yeah, how do you work out what ski to get? Well, if you're looking at Big Mountain, if you're looking at Freeride, it can be incredibly confusing. Often you think, okay, it's about width. If we look at Black Crow's and we look at their Big Mountain line, I mean, they go from 100 mil underfoot for their Solus up to, I think it's 122 for the Nocta. That's Big Mountain. And then you step over to somebody like Faction. Now they've got the La Machine 5, the Max, that's 126 underfoot. They call that Freeride. Go to Dynastar, their M Pro Freeride range goes from something like 83 up to 99 or 108 for the T model. So it does get very confusing.
So, yeah, as a regular skier, let's say I've never had any skis before and I'm looking to buy them now. Is it really the guideline there as to whether it's like a piste ski or Big Mountain or Freeride? The starting point really is how wide that ski is under my foot?
That is a really good place to start in my experience. So with a piste ski, you might be looking at, say, 65, 66 millimeters underfoot. This is the width directly under your boot when you step on the ski. But there's a lot of slightly wider skis, so maybe up to 70s, upper 70s. There are that mid 60s, mid 70s is perfect for piste. When you go above that, up to maybe 19, 92 mil, then that's where we look at all mountain. And then when we go up from that, then that's when we start to get into Freeride and Big Mountain. The difference in Freeride and Big Mountain, to keep it nice and simple, is typically that Big Mountain skis can be way stiffer. If you're going to go and charge huge Alaskan spines, big mountain skiing, that's a stiff ski. I am not that skier. I ski big mountain skis. I love them, but I just don't have the ability. But in the UK especially, piste, all mountain, Freeride are the big categories. All mountain is really hard to define because it hugely crosses over. If you look at Volkel, for example, so a dedicated piste ski like the Deacon Master, they do that, but the Deacon 72, which I love, but that is really a dedicated piste ski. It's just got a bit of rocker front and back, but that sits in their all mountain line. So it is a little bit confusing between brands. So what I would do is look at where you want to ski, so the terrain and the location. If you're going to ski in the Tyrol of Austria, it might be slightly different gradient and rolling terrain compared to some of the more aggressive terrain that you might get in somewhere like Verbier. The snow that you want to ski, if you're going to ski hard snow, a narrow ski is much better. If you're going to ski lots of soft snow, then a wider ski with more rocker, so lift through the front and back of the ski, will help to make that easier. So you can start with width. If you are going to do one thing, if you're going to focus on one ski, I would encourage people to look narrower rather than looking wider. You will have a much better time most of the time being on a narrower ski than being on something that's wide and then really struggling to get grip and pitches when the conditions are firmer.
And can I just cover a couple of things? I said I didn't want to get too much into the jargon, but the width is pretty easy to understand.
Yeah.
You mentioned the rocker just then. Can you explain in simple terms what a rocker is?
Yeah, hopefully. There are two main terms. So we get early rise and rocker. It is the same thing. So if you imagine a ski, traditionally a ski, you put it flat on the floor, a nice, hard, flat, smooth floor. You will see there's a gap under the binding where the ski's lifted off. So that makes it kind of springy. That's called camber. And then at the tip and tail, that's when it will touch the floor. So when you stand on a ski on snow, that middle bit goes down and the tips lift up. And that's how we form the turn shape. But brands can help with that. So they build a little bit of more lift into the front and the back. Not just the shovel, but you imagine if you come 10 centimeters back from the tip or 15 centimeters, you lie the ski on the floor, you'll see that slightly off the ground. And that is what we call rocker.
That was brilliantly explained. Thank you. I think I probably understand something that I never quite got before. What about a side cut? Is that relevant at all? I remember talking to Bodie Miller when I interviewed him about his new peak skis. He's less concerned about what side cut means. But do you have a view on that? How important is it to someone if they're thinking about buying skis?
I love that Bodie episode, and I am with him, and I'll explain why. So side cut, we talk about the width at the tip. It might be, let's say, 128 millimeters width underfoot or in the waist, and that may be 66, maybe 108, and then a width in the tail. So the tip and tail are normally wider than the middle. That gives us an idea of things like float, turn shape, grip, etc. But there's lots more going on. People also talk about side cut radius or turn radius, and these things are linked. So this is when you tilt a ski on its edge, it's the shape it will naturally form in the snow, that curve, that arc. And the reason why I always kind of think to take it with a pinch of salt. So a classic example for me is Head have a very, very popular ski called the Super Shape Magnum. It's amazing. And it's a piste ski. And one year they changed the widths at the tip, waist and tail. So the proportion was different. The relative difference between how wide it was in the shovel and the tail compared to the middle was different in these 2 years. And for the same length ski, they quoted the same turn radius. Now, mathematically, that's not possible. So always take these things with a pinch of salt. And I'd go a step further than that as well. When you're looking at ski length, do not fixate too much on the length. Oh, it needs to be 178. It needs to be 175. Because brands measure their lengths in different ways. So if we look at Head and K2, for example, and you pick a 178 ski, stand them up next to each other, they will be different lengths.
How can that be possible? How can you say?
Do you measure? Do you put the ski against the wall, mark the top like you do with your kids when they're growing, and then measure that in a straight line? Do you run the tape measure on the top sheet of the ski, but follow all the contours of the ski with the tape? That's still a valid way to measure it. If you did that, but you got a tape measure and measured the underside of the ski, that would be a longer distance again. Yep. So it depends how they calculate length. All of these things give you a guide. Take them with a pinch of salt.
If you were trying, again, someone maybe who hasn't bought a ski before, what would you be saying to them about the length of the ski that they want to be getting?
This is where people get quite confused. And I think a lot of it is an historic issue. So when we had old, what we call pencil skis, so they did not have much side cut, they were straight. If you're going to ski soft snow, you would need a longer ski to get more float. If you're skiing hard snow, you could ski a shorter ski. Now, With modern skis, we've got a massive variety in widths, and that is what essentially gives us the float. There's construction and shaping and all of that, yes, but that width gives us the float. So I can ski a 175 ski on piste, and then I can jump onto a 175 powder ski because it's 2 centimeters wider for the whole length and get way more float off piste. I don't need to go an extra 15, 20 centimeters in length. So if you're just getting into this, a really good starting point is to look between really chin and top of head, but most people are probably looking around nose to forehead level for a ski. That is a safe bet. It comes down to weight and skiing aggression because the ski can't see how tall you are. It can only feel how much pressure and energy you're putting through it.
That sounds like a really good guideline. So we're going to talk about, different skis as well. But I was interested, regular listeners will know I'm very interested in sustainability. So much of the innovation we're seeing in skis is in that area of sustainability. And we're going to cover this in all of these equipment episodes. But looking specifically at skis, Al, what are the big changes and trends we're seeing this season?
Isn't it interesting? And I know you and I have had various conversations, but it's really interesting to see what is happening this season specifically, because it's taken 2, 5, 10 years for the brands to be able to come up with these solutions. So we've already seen things like recycled materials being used in the edge of the ski, that metal edge. Instead of just using pure virgin metal, we can use recycled metal in there. Top sheets of skis, which have typically been made of plastics, we're seeing more and more recycled material being used there. But really, it's what's happening inside the ski that's exceptionally exciting, especially when we look at brands that have been using far more sustainable sources for their wood cores. The majority of skis, especially performance skis inside, use a lot of wood. But even they're coming up with clever solutions. So Dynastar has a new M-Cross range of skis. They've had a hybrid core for a while where they mix wood and synthetic polyurethane material, but they use a hybrid core 2.0. They love these names, don't they? So what they do, they use wood instead of just running it, say, in 2 different planes, because you do not just get a plank of wood in a ski, because that would be it'd be different for every model, every one they produce. So what they do, they cut the wood into strips, very thin strips, and then glue that together. So with the Dynastar Hybrid, they've been able to glue the wood so that the fibers running in it can run in 3 different orientations. And this can give you enhanced performance. And that means you don't have to put as many of the environmentally damaging or products that produce more CO2 in there, such as resin and fiberglass. But there's loads more going on.
You said before that the most sustainable item of ski equipment that you would have is the one that you've already got.
Yeah.
And a lot of those developments are designed about reducing emissions, but they're also designed to try and make the product last longer as well. Is that right?
Well, one of the things I think a lot of people worry about is cost. So you're making something more sustainable, so it's going to cost more. So we see a little bit of that, but actually not nearly as much as I thought we would. But I had a really interesting interview I was doing with a chap called David Bouvier from Rossignol. They've been on this 10-year journey to develop a way more recyclable ski that uses way more recycled materials, and we can talk about that in a little bit. One of the things he kept coming back to was that point that you raised: the most sustainable product is the one you already own.
Yeah, and you mentioned Rossignol. I can't recall what episode it was. I don't need to stick in a link into the show notes because you're going to tell us about it now, but you did mention the Rossignol Essential ski, essentially nice. The most sustainable ski ever produced. What has led you to that conclusion?
So a typical ski, a traditionally manufactured ski, their research, and is their research, I wasn't involved in that project. I can only go with what we get told, but it's kind of similar to what I've heard from other brands. Around 8% of a traditionally manufactured ski can be recycled. It's got lots of different materials in there, lots of different, it's got different glues. How do you separate it? How can you then recycle it? 8%. Rossignol's quoted figure for the essential ski is that it's 77% recyclable. That's a staggering difference. I am going to caveat that. How do we recycle these products? How do we
it was exactly the question that came to my mind. Like, you've got a ski and you're thinking, well, if I've got a bottle or a can, I can put it in my recycle bin outside. How do I recycle my ski?
Yeah, so Rossignol aren't the only people to be doing this. Now, they have a facility at their factory in France where they can recycle skis. On each essential ski, there's information how the person that buys a ski can register with that system and work out how to get it back to Rossignol, get it recycled in the future. But that's quite a long way off. If these skis are lasting 10, 20 years, lots of people have skis that are older than that, but certainly 5 years, that's a little way off. I have seen lots of different initiatives. So people are repurposing shipping containers to build recycling plants for skis. Other brands, if we look at the Technica group, so Technica, Blizzard, Nordic, all these brands together, they've done loads in this space as well in terms of what we're doing with recycling products. So it is moving along. It's not there yet, but we're certainly making big inroads to get there. I mean, that essential ski, so it uses over 34%, I think is the quoted figure, of recycled material. It uses almost a similar figure in biosource of sustainable woods, essentially, in the ski. But what really surprised me, because I want to test this, and I thought, hold on, this is going to be a bit of a noodle, how it's skied. And is insane too strong a word? It is insane that they can build a ski that is made in such a different manner to a traditional ski and ski so phenomenally well. It's odd. You even see the wood core of the ski, which is always protected on skis. They have a plastic sidewall. It has no sidewall. The wood you see in the side of the ski is the core of the ski. It's amazing. And this was one of the major challenges for them, was how do they seal that and stop water ingress? So it's a really interesting journey that we're on. And to watch this unfold is pretty exciting.
Great. So that's really interesting to hear that there's so many developments like that going on in relation to sustainability. And I know you mentioned there are different brands that are using sidewall offcuts, bioresin, like Faction have got B Corp certification as well. But let's just reiterate how you know about all of these skis, because you said you tested the Rossignol Essential. Most of these skis were tested by you in La Clusaz at the SIGB ski test earlier this year. Is that right?
Yeah. So, if many people may not know, there is an organisation in the UK called the Snow Sports Industries of Great Britain, and it's exactly that. It's a body that everybody that works in skiing, certainly to do with product, media like myself, tested, etc. We're all part of this organisation. There's a trade show in the UK, and then they organise a test out in the mountain. I go out and I test lots of product, and everybody's got a really broad span of product that we can get onto and look at, and the testers have all different backgrounds and abilities. So it's a fantastic testing environment for us that way.
So what I'd like to do now then is just to move on to skis that we would recommend, the standout skis. And I thought the best way of doing this is basically, I've already asked you, Al, in advance to see if you could pick out products at the kind of the top, middle and entry levels, which is what we're thinking about. Different people listening to podcasts, you're going to have different requirements, different budgets, etc. There's no point just banging on about the most expensive skis the whole time. We want to look at everything that's available within the range. So given those parameters, far away, we've mentioned the Rossignol Essential already. What else would you pick as your standout skis for this winter?
When I spoke before, I mentioned that, if you're going to focus somewhere, you'd focus on narrow skis. So I'm going to cover 3 of the certainly 2 narrower, your Piste models, and then an all-mountain ski as well, and then touring and freeride, because these are really, in the UK, it's really important, touring's growing. I have to mention the Salomon Addikt Pro. It just blew everybody away. This ski is incredible. It uses a recycled material in the sidewall. It's proper funky, bright sidewall. I did not know that normal ski manufacturing has a wastage of around 40% in making sidewalls. It's bonkers. So they take all of those extra materials, recompress it, and there's no difference in the performance of the sidewall. And they use it in this. They use it in they have a QST Echo, which is like a lighter version of their 106. They kind of free tour style ski, and they use it in that and some other things. But this ski, it is not a race ski. It is the most fun you can have on snow. Honestly, get on it, try it. It's amazing. 66 mil underfoot. It's not horribly expensive. Yes, it's £780, but that comes with the binding. This ski uses technology from their race department. It is not a race ski. I'm going to reiterate that. It uses blade flex. This just makes the ski easier to flex. If you look at the tail, it looks like it's got a swallowtail, like a powder tail. This is actually just the release out the back more easily. Piste performance skis often can keep you locked into a turn. This does not. You can dodge around. It is incredible fun. They also make an Addikt ski, which is £100 less. It has rocker through the front. Do not mistake the Addikt for being a cheaper way to get the Addikt Pro. For me, they are different skis.
Right. Okay. So interesting. So even though they've appended the Pro onto the Addikt, it's not just a way of differentiating them and saying, "Oh,
no." I mean, this is 66 mil underfoot. The normal Addikt is 72. It's got 15% rocket through the shovel. It's £100 less. Yes, brilliant. I would always spend £100 more to get this ski. It is so good. So that's the upper end. Intermediate through to expert. Brilliant.
Right. Okay. And just, if we're looking at that, if you're going to be spending that much money on a ski and binding together, £100 discounted across the number of holidays that you're going to take it on, it's one of those instances where it's worth paying a little bit more to get the right ski. Okay. What's your second selection as a Piste ski then?
Yeah, there are lots of skis you could look at in this segment. Nordica came up with something called dual core in skis for their ladies skis. So where they take a layer of wood, rubber layer in the middle, and then a layer of wood underneath called dual core. So they do a dual core 72. I think actually, I was in Brigham's the other day, and I'm pretty sure this is one of their skis of the year. For four line, it was one of our editor's choice last season. That's brilliant, but it is a higher price point. They actually make a far more accessible version. So this is around £385. It's a bit wider. It's the Bell 75. So you get wooden synthetic core in there. You've got a little bit of lift through the front. So if you are just on starting out on your skier journey, maybe you've had a week skiing, you want to get onto something, this is an amazing choice. You get the Nordica build quality, really easy to use, £385, including a binding.
Okay. Right, 380. So we're talking, half the price of that Salomon Addikt Pro that you mentioned, and you're saying better for those who are just getting into skiing, intermediates, etc. The Nordica Bell 75. Sorry, just clarify. Is this a unisex ski?
No. So Bell is the ladies' range, and they are phenomenal. They did a massive amount of research on building their ladies' skis, and that's why it's incredible to get the amount of R&D that they've got for this series in something that is such a good price point.
And so, therefore, is there an equivalent in their range as a male ski, for example?
So if you go onto the men's skis, because these are specific women's skis, then you'd be looking at the Spitfire range, or they have a Steadfast range as well. So you'd be looking at something in that. And they've got all levels. You can go from lower price point right up to, almost full-on race ski.
So thinking about the all-mountain category then, what cropped up on your list for that?
Oh, I love this category. People focus on this, buy an all-mountain ski, and often they'd be better off with a Piste ski. And do you go for a fat ski or a narrow ski? Again, I'm going to focus on a lady ski. Yes, there's a men's equivalent. K2 do a Mindbender series, which is phenomenal. But people have often focused on the metal versions, the TI. They do a Mindbender 89 TI wheels, which is brilliant. Very great, more punchy, quite stiff, great on piste. But I want to focus on the 90C for a few reasons. One, the whole sustainability thing, that their carbon range of Mindbenders for this year. So they're using bioresin, they're using eco waxes from a company called Wend on all skis, all snowboards that come out of their factories. The Mindbender 90C is a brilliant true all mountain ski. Performs on piste, lift through the front. If you want to get into off-piste skiing, go off the side, maybe go a bit further afield, it is a brilliant option, and I absolutely love it. That's the ladies' version. They do a men's version, and again, the men's carbon skis, the Mindbenders, are superb.
And this is for, intermediates who want to kind of move up a level. They're improving. They want to kind of, ideally move up to be an advanced skier. What price point are we looking at for this then?
Yeah, so we call it a flat mount. So you imagine a ski with no binding plate, no binding track. That's flat mount, where you've got to drill holes and mount the binding. So it's £455 without a binding. So that's worth it.
And the obvious next question is, how much are bindings?
Yeah, so how that piece of string crash, and love it. So it depends what you get. The beauty with this kind of ski, it suits intermediates really well. But if you are an advanced or expert skier, you want that lower weight. Maybe you want to put a hybrid binding on it. So a hybrid binding allows you to ski downhill like normal, but will allow you to release the heel to walk uphill if you put skins on the bottom of skis. So this kind of ski will allow you to do it. And those kind of bindings can be a lot more expensive. So you are going to be paying anywhere between, let's say, £120 for binding up to £400 for binding. I mean, it depends exactly what you get. So
okay, that's kind of interesting. Depending, what type of binding you're looking for, and I guess that's always going to be the case. Okay, moving on to freeride skis. Then, what's your pick in this segment?
Yeah, so like the Mindbender, this is a new ski for this season. Scott Skis has a pure range of skis. Years ago, they had a ski called the Mission, which was brilliant, very playful, very easy, relatively soft flexing. But they've got a new pure called the Mission 98 Ti. They do a men's version and a women's version. It's a slightly higher price. It's £580 without a binding. And this is an amazing ski. Yes, you want to be an advanced level skier, really, to get the most out of it. It's got loads of performance, wood core, carbon at the top, metal under the binding. And it's almost an all-mountain ski because it's got so much grip on hard snow. It's 98mm underfoot, so it's slightly wider. And this is where we're talking about, don't fixate on a ski category, but look at the ski itself. The float that you get off it, the lift through the shovel, is just brilliant. It punches through variable, chopped up snow. It gives excellent float, but then when you're back on firm snow on piste, or maybe there's harder snow when you're skiing off piste, it just gives lots of grip. So if you've got fairly decent technique, if you are classify yourself as that advanced level skier, this is just phenomenal to see Scott come up with this new ski for this season.
What is it then? I mean, because this sounds interesting to me. I'm looking at this. You're saying it suits, advanced level skiers. Yeah, not necessarily say I'm an expert skier, but in that category, like going off piste, I like the idea that though you could, it is to a certain degree an all mountain ski as well. What is it that Scott have done with this ski, the Pure Mission, to make it so much better than whatever the previous iteration was?
Well, they have a pure free, it's 8mm narrower, it's 90mm underfoot, and that's much softer. That's a brilliant intermediate all mountain ski. This just has more guts. It's got more performance in it, but it's not punishing. So you can ski at slower speeds, and yes, actually, I could form pretty tight turns on this thing. It was quite incredible. But then you jump off a lump, and there'd be something on the other side you may not expect, and it was really stable. It just has this fantastic blend of low speed, high speed, slightly tighter turn, bigger turn, soft snow, ease of use. Then when you open things up and you go a bit faster, it instills confidence. It's just got a really broad, fun, confident, inspiring spectrum.
Well, everything you're saying there makes it stand out. I particularly like the idea that you were just skiing over a lump and you discovered whatever it was on the other side. That sounds like
there's plenty hiddens, aren't there? So yeah.
Okay, final one then. You've picked out a touring ski for us as well. What are you bringing into the equation here?
Well, I'm going to talk about a couple, but there's one that I really want to focus on. So often people look at narrower product when they're going dedicated touring. If you're an Austrian and you're going touring, you are going to be on something that's 85 mil underfoot, almost without question. So an Austrian company, Atomic, they brought out backland touring skis. They've had them out for years, but they've got new ones for this year. And it's taken them 2 years, but they've reduced the CO2 emissions in how they make the skis by around 30%. It's amazing. But they've got a new width called an 88. And I don't really like thin touring skis. I prefer 95 and up. This was amazing. And I partly twigged why none of the models that they make in the 88 range, because it's the same for men and women, are 88 underfoot. The narrowest is 88 and a half. They're all wider. So that's probably why I like it so much. But the Glen Plake ski. So people may know of Glen Plake. He's a total legend. I've been fortunate enough to do things with him, meet him, ski with him. He works with Alain, and Alain make a brilliant freeride range called Ripstick, very famous, but they do a tour range, so for ski touring. And he developed with them a 104 wide ski. So that's quite wide for a touring ski, but the broad range that this thing delivers, so you can use it amazingly on Piste. It's wide, it's light, you think it's going to wash out and be terrible, and it just doesn't. And then when you want to go off Piste, when you want to go away from where everybody else is, you're never in any doubt that this thing will handle it. And it's still pretty light. I mean, cost-wise, so this is interesting. So it's listed as £755. I was in Ellis Brigham, as I mentioned before, and it's 720 with them. So I'm not sure what's going on, but great. Why not? It's a bit of a saving. But yeah, it's less than 1,500 grams in this ski. And that's pretty long, pretty wide. It performs phenomenally, and it has an awesome graphic. Not that that really matters.
Well, it wouldn't surprise me if Glen Plake was involved. That has an awesome graphic. Sorry, you said it's 720 at Ellis Brigham. Is that with or without a binding? That's
without. So this again is flat mount. This is without a binding because you need to select which touring binding you're going to go on it. So do pair. Don't put something really heavy on this ski. Put a lighter weight, either hybrid or pure touring binding on it. And that's when you're going to get the most out of it.
Right. And, we are saying, right, this is the top end of the market, because I think you were saying before that those lightweight touring or hybrid bindings, they're the ones at the top of the price range for bindings right. as well. So we're saying that this is going to be like £1,000 package, are we?
And if you don't have skins for it already, you will get them. But touring product, lighter product, is generally more expensive. To get the performance and keep the weight down is really expensive to do because of the carbon.
Yeah, well, we've actually, or you have enlightened me on the podcast before, but I think, see if I can even remember the stat. Isn't it something like, 1 kilo on your feet is worth 5 kilos in your backpack? Is that it?
That is an amazing memory. That is absolutely right. Yeah. This was an army research piece, but yeah. So every kilo you save off your foot is magnified on your back 5 times. You're absolutely right.
If you're the sort of person who's listening to this and you're thinking about, buying a ski touring ski specifically, then probably you are going to be looking into those weights. And just remind me again, what that Elan Ripstick one is, the Glen Plake model.
So in the 173 length, it's 1,470 grams for the quoted weight.
Okay, and then you mentioned Atomic Backlands. You may have this in front of you. Do you know what their weight is?
I have the information. Give me 1 second, I'll find it. That 88 is a bit lighter because it's narrower, but it's 1,300 grams in a mid 170 length, 176, I think.
Okay, price point for the Backland?
Backland's a lot less. It's £500.
Right. Okay. So strictly weight wise, that sounds great. But there are reasons that you picked out that Elan Ripstick, right?
A lot of people are getting into touring from alpine skiing. So if you go to a lighter weight product and then try and ski in challenging conditions off piste, it's better if you have more experience in that kind of terrain before you start to go narrow. In my experience, with something that's mid 90s, 100, 104, it makes it easier when you're getting into that tour style, that free tour style skiing. And the Glen Plake is an exemplary model of that. It's just brilliant.
Right, it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, we could probably do a whole episode on this about touring and touring skis, because you're saying, yeah, it's simply not as straightforward as just like, oh, I want to get the lightest skis possible.
Oh,
It
no.
depends on your level of skiing, and it depends on how much experience you've got of skiing in the off-piste as well. So interesting. Just at this point, we're talking about touring skis. You mentioned getting skins. I mean, how much are skins? I've always kind of hired them from a shop previously.
But you're looking at 140, 150, 200 pounds kind of price point for a set of skins.
Yeah. But on the other hand, think about all the money you're going to save by not having to buy a lift pass, because you're skidding up all the mountains, and you never need to have a lift pass.
Yeah, I mean, you jest, but it's true. I've done that in quite a few resorts where I haven't used the lift at all.
Well, there you go. You can easily earn it back. Well, that is really interesting. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a link to all of those different products in the show notes and detail them, because I know we've covered quite a lot in this episode. Really, really interesting. I know, we've said before, we could just talk in so much detail about all of these things, and I always find it really interesting talking to you. So, we will have our next episode. We're going to look at ski boots. We already have a special episode about ski boots that you were on before. So I think I'll probably refer people to that, for some of the background, but we will be looking at, your pick for the best product in that. Just to wrap up, I just would like to remind listeners that this is a special episode of the Ski Podcast, and it's very kindly been made possible by Ellis Brigham. They are winter sports specialists. They have 16 shops around the UK. You can find all the kit that you need there for this winter, or you can go to their website at ellis-brigham.com, where you can buy that online now. But otherwise, I'd like to thank you, Al, for all of your research and sharing all of your knowledge with us. Always a pleasure to speak to you.
Thank you, Iain. I've really enjoyed today. It's so much fun.
Cool, excellent. And otherwise, listener, thank you for joining us. And until next time, goodbye.